Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the remote version of the Danvers Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is John Bowner. I am the chairman of the Danvers Zoning Board of Appeals. We are conducting this meeting, obviously, remotely, and therefore our structure is a little bit different. I will go around and just do a mic check and introduce our Danvers Zoning Board members. Becky Kilborn.
Yes, here.
Ken Scholes, our clerk.
Yep.
Jeff Sauer.
Here.
Ken Jarvinen.
Here.
And our alternate, Corinne Doherty.
Here.
And from the planning department, we have David Fields.
Present.
And we have Georgia Pendergrass.
Present.
Thank you. Anyone who's here to speak on the public side on any of our cases tonight, I will call you as we get to the public portion. But I would like to hear from our one and only continued case of the night, and that is, I believe it's Dillip Realty, 152 Endicott Street. Who is here for that case to present? Anyone?
We do have a representative. It looks like they're not unmuted.
And I'm also seeing that he's having trouble connecting. Oh, that went away. So.
Would that be Rob Hewitt?
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
I can. Could you just identify yourself?
It's Rob Hewitt from Fairfield Residential.
And
we are the applicant.
okay, and Rob, you'll be presenting this evening?
I will, yes.
Very good, thank you. We just have some preliminary addresses to go through, and then we'll read your case and get to you. Board members, you were all in receipt of our new formatted minutes from our April 12th meeting. Unless there's any further discussion on those minutes, I'd like to get a motion to accept those minutes with a second.
So moved.
I have a motion from Becky Kilborn, and I got a second from Ken Scholes. I'll go with a roll call vote. Becky Kilborn.
Yes.
Ken Scholes.
Yes.
Jeff Sauer.
Yes.
Jeff, did I miss you on the introductions?
No.
I'm sorry. Your video keeps going in and out, so I'm not sure you're there.
I'm here.
Okay. Ken Jarvinen.
Here. Yes.
And Corinne Doherty.
Here. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Accepting the minutes. And yes, John Bowner is also accepting minutes. If you could, Mr. Clerk, could you read us our remote learning, remote meeting from the governor's office?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. This open meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth, due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuing public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals is convening remotely via the WebEx app, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this point, I believe we've got all our preliminary information out of the way, and if you could read our continued case, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first case and only case is Dillip Realty LLC, docket 20-4886, requesting a use and dimensional variance to redevelop the property into a 5-story multifamily building with 208 residential units and a 5-story accessory parking garage in accordance with Section 6.1 and Table 2 of the Danvers zoning bylaws at 152 Endicott Street. This is Zone C3.
Thank you, Ken. And Mr. Hewitt, before you get going, I just want to check with the zoning board members. Zoning board members, we were all in receipt of a letter from Fairfield dated April 19th, and I just want to be sure all of you have received that letter, which gave us an update on the project. And just simple roll call. Becky, yes or no? Ken?
Yes.
Jeff Sowers, a yes?
Yes.
Ken Jarvinen?
Yes.
And Corinne Doherty.
Yes.
And I also received it. Mr. Hewitt, the floor is yours. Please, if you could, just shed upon the new items, as this case has been delayed quite a number of months. I've reviewed old minutes, and I believe I'm kind of up to speed with where we're at, and I believe your letter captured a lot of things. So if you could just summarize for us, and we'll turn it over for questions. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Welcome.
Members of the board, thank you for having us back tonight. As you know, we've been in front of the board several times, and we received a lot of comments from the board, which we've taken some time to react to. And so over the past several months, we've been addressing those comments, which I'll describe briefly after the introduction. We've also been discussing the current access road design and some improvements, suggested improvements from the retail abutter. And we've also been continuing to evaluate the project given the current economics, which are troubling for our industry in that we're having declining rents and increasing costs. So all of these factors weighed in on what we're coming back to the board with a revised proposal, which I think addresses the comments of the board to the extent we can. And we do think it can still be a successful project, both for us and for the town of Danvers. So looking at our requested variances from our initial submittal, we've made some adjustments based on the board's comments and also comments from others in town. We are agreeing to increase the affordability of the project from 10%, which we applied for, to 12.5% affordable units. Given all the discussions with this board, we've decided to withdraw our requested variances relating to signage. So we will stick with the existing regulations relative to signage. We've spent a lot of time redesigning and reevaluating the building. We've made some significant improvements relative to height and unit count, which were two consistent comments from this board. So I'll discuss, kind of break the project into three sections. The parking garage, which is attached to the building and the building wraps around it, we were able to remove an entire level from the garage and also shorten the distance between the various floors, resulting in a reduction of 17 feet lower in the current iteration, so reducing the garage from 65 feet to 48 feet. Part of that change, we added some additional surface parking to replace some of that lost garage parking and also to add a little more parking to increase the parking ratio up to 1.65. We redesigned the Endicott portion of the building, so the entire section of the building that's visible from Endicott Street within about 130 feet of the road. We've taken a floor off of the building, and we've also reduced the height, overall height of each floor, dropping that section of the building down to 48 feet from a previous 65 feet, so a net reduction of 17 feet. The rear portion of the building, what I'm calling the river portion of the building, it remains at 5 stories, but we have done similar reductions in the internal workings of the building and shaved 7 feet off of that, reducing that from 65 feet to 58 feet. So we did a lot of work with our consultant team to make this as most efficient as we can and address the board's concerns. So the net result of these changes is we reduced the number of units we're requesting from 208 to 192. That changes the number of affordable units from 21 to 23, given the change in the affordable percentage that we talked about earlier. These changes reduce the number of variances we're requesting from the original of 14 to 9. There is one additional variance that we may not need that the team is still evaluating, the front parking setback. Because of the redesign, we moved the garage further from Endicott Street, and it ends up being outside of that front setback. But I've asked our team to evaluate that and check in with town staff before we formalize that change. I noted in my letter that some of the reasons that this site is difficult to develop, and it's remained on the market for over 4 years, empty. The current owner has tried to market it for a number of uses, including retail, hotel, and the only use that he has been able to find is us as a multifamily redevelopment. And part of the issue is the site, beyond the general geometric constraints and hardships, are some things that we've uncovered during our diligence. And I just bring this to the board's attention because these are fixed costs which really affect any development of this site. It's really independent of the number of units or the type of building. Some of those uses include there's quite a bit of hazardous material that needs to be abated in the existing hotel and restaurant building before demolition. There's some contaminated soil that we have to manage during construction. We need to rebuild build Chalet Court and make some traffic improvements at the intersection. The demolition of the existing buildings is an extensive scope. We have some electric infrastructure improvements that the town, we've worked with the town to identify to be able to serve our project. And the site has poor soil conditions due to its proximity to the river, organic soil deposits, and it will require pile foundations, which are expensive. We also have the sort of other site constraints we've talked about before, which include the wetlands, the Chapter 91 waterway restrictions, and the gas pipeline easements. So adding up all those constraints, it's about $4.5 million of fixed costs that we have to overcome with our density. That's why we have to achieve enough density to make this project economically viable. So we've tried to take a hard look and get to the smallest project, both in height and number of units that we could, and still be able to move forward with this development. So that's where we're at, and we're in the process of finalizing the redesign drawings and plans and other items for this board, but I wanted to take this time to get back to the board since it's been some time since we were here and get any more feedback before we proceed with filing those additional materials. So at this point, I'll stop talking and take questions from the board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hewitt. I guess before I do turn it over to the board, I would say that after this amount of time, I would have thought with these, especially the building changes, we would have seen some kind of rendering or drawing. It just helps this board visualize the changes that you've clearly made from what you initially submitted. I think it's a little bit difficult for us to kind of just envision this. So, drawings are kind of key to what we look at. But with that said, I will turn it over to the board. Board members, I will remind you, I'm not really looking for comments at this point, and let's just keep this portion to questions, and again, questions based on the changes that the applicant has made. And I'll start with you, Becky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I did is, based on the letter that we received, I went to Exhibit 6 in the original documents that you submitted, Mr. Hewitt, and went down that, which is the list of the 14 variances. And if I could just review those with you, because I think that's key in terms of our approval, is what variances are required. So it looks like if we could just go down that list, number 1, 2, 3, and 4 are still in place. Is that correct? Do you have that in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me, but my attorney, Tim Sullivan, who's spoken in front of this board, is on the line and can speak to that.
Okay.
Hi,
That's
yes.
okay.
Tim,
Okay. Well, do you want me to wait or?
oh, I'm on the line here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, those are correct. As Rob mentioned a minute ago, one of the front setbacks may be able to come out, but yes, yes, you're right.
The first, which is the first variance, is that correct?
Yes, I believe that is the one that would come out, yes.
Okay. Okay. So then if we go to number 5, when you said the maximum building height is no longer 65 feet, it's 48 feet on Endicott Street and 58 feet along the river. Is there a middle section that's still 65 feet, or is it just 48 and 58?
It's just 48 and 58.
So it's not 65 anywhere at all?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then the next one is the maximum parking garage height that went from 65 to 48, which is still would need a variance, right? Because the maximum is 25.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then the next one is the number of off-street parking spaces went to 1.65. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then the next 4 are all related to signs, and you're withdrawing those 4 variances. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, and so what are you going to do for signage?
We're gonna use the two allowed signs in the current regulations.
So the Denny sign that's out front, and then the Econo Lodge sign that's out along 128, those 2 signs you're going to reuse?
We're going to construct new signs.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah. The same size, though, right?
Correct. We're not seeking any additional variance from that sign.
Okay. 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 So those 4. All right. And then the last one is the reduction or the increase in affordable housing, which is the 14th variance. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct. Yep.
All right. And do they, excuse me, through Mr. Chairman, through to David, do they need a variance if they're going to do 12.5%?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry about that. No, I don't believe a variance is needed for the affordability.
Because that meets our requirements?
It meets your requirements, and the multifamily affordability provisions only comes into play for a special permit from the planning board as it's currently drafted.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So we still have...
Becky, hold on. Let me clarify on that. So, David, because this isn't through special permit, It doesn't have to meet that threshold.
It does not have to meet it. The applicant, however, is willing to go up to 12.5% for the
Okay,
project.
understood. Thank you. Sorry, Becky, go ahead.
So we do still need that variance?
We do not.
We do not. Okay. So we've eliminated 5, 4 for the signs, 1 for the affordable, and so we have the rest. Okay. And so I agree with John, and that it's difficult to envision what this is going to look like without any new plans. So obviously the parking plan would be key because you've taken some of the parking spaces out of the garage. Is that correct? And you put them on the ground?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then the building plan, I mean, I can wonder what it looks like, but I can't really, I need to know, I need to see it. I need to see it. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you, Becky.
We will be submitting a plan that both shows these changes in plan view and also an updated rendering that shows the view from Endicott Street.
Okay, that would be helpful. Yes.
Okay, let me turn it over to Ken Scholes. Questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually just have one question, and it's kind of not related to this, but it is. How many units were proposed at Hollywood Hits? Does anybody know that?
That was 140.
140?
I believe.
Attorney McCann, maybe you can...
He's nodding, so I will go with yes. Go ahead, Nancy.
It was 140, and then I believe we reduced it down to 130.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ken. Jeff Sauer, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hewitt, in your introduction, I think I heard you say that the number of units was coming down to 192.
That's correct.
And if I multiply 192 by 12.5, I get 24 units exactly.
Well, I will have to double check my math because I came up with 23, but whatever 12.5% is, that's what we're going to do. So
I just multiplied 192 times 0.125, and the answer is 24 exactly. Okay, that's my only question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And there is the engineer in the group checking the math. Very good, Jeff. Thank you. We will go to Ken Jarvinen.
What is the maximum height with any fencing or equipment or anything on top of the structure? You say it's 48 feet on Endicott Street, but what is the maximum height with anything on top on the roof?
Well, I believe that distance is to the roof line. I don't think there will be anything projecting above other than some mechanical equipment, which will be set back from the edge of the building in accordance with the code. But I can triple check that before I provide the update to this board.
Mr. Hewitt, could you tell us what would be typical heights for mechanicals on a roof? 10 feet? 8?
Our mechanical systems are basically like a condenser that you see outside a typical house, so 3 to 4 feet. We don't have any tall equipment.
Good. And elevator shafts, anything of that nature?
No, I think we may have one door that sticks up for roof access to service the mechanical equipment, but other than that, nothing else above grade.
Ken, additional questions?
Yeah, also that goes with the 58-foot rear of the building, correct? Same thing.
Correct.
Mechanicals. Okay. All right, I have no other questions.
Thank you, Ken. Corinne Doherty.
Yes. The amount of units have been reduced from 208 to 192. Do you have the breakdown of 1 and 2 bedrooms for the new total?
Yeah, I don't have that breakdown in front of me, but we have a ratio of 60% one bedrooms and 40% two bedrooms. And given my earlier mistake, I better triple check my math before I report that to this board. We don't have any 3 bedrooms consistent with our previous application, which had no 3 bedrooms.
And you also stated that you reduced the size of the parking garage. You removed one of the levels, and now you added surface parking. So now you have increased the parking ratio to 1.65. Can you tell me how many exact parking spaces there are, both in the garage and on the surface area?
Yes, we have a total of 50 on the ground. There were 10 previously, and we've added 40, basically between the building and the river. And just forgive me, I want to double check. So we've got a total of 316 parking spaces, and we've got 50 on the ground, which gives us about 266 in the garage.
Weren't those 10 spaces though designated for guest parking? So are the 10 spaces included in the 50 that you have outside? So in other words, you're eliminating all guest parking by relocating some of the parking spaces to the surface area.
Well, we had planned on the 10 guest spaces before and also some guest parking in the garage previously. We probably will keep all the guest parking on the surface in this current iteration. We haven't finalized that thinking. But it seems easier to keep it outside.
Are those 10 guest parking spaces included in that 1.65 ratio?
Yes.
So it's really not 1.65 then. You'd have to eliminate those 10.
Well, typically we simply use the total number of parking versus the total number of units when we talk about parking ratios, but I can break it down with more detail if that's helpful.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Corinne, any additional questions?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hewitt, I think Becky Kilborn did a good job to summarize the 14 variances. And now, if I heard you at the top, you said you were down to 9. And if I see on here, 4 were regarding signage, which are now removed. But I have a question I'd like to go out to David Fields on about the signs. So David, I guess I'll start it this way. The existing signs on the Denny's site, the 2 that Becky mentioned, do they comply with today's zoning?
That's a tough question. I'd need measurements on the signs to see whether they conform. I don't know how big they are just by...
So I guess for argument's sake, let's say they do not.
Mm-hmm.
Would we now require this applicant to... I guess I'm trying to understand if these signs are grandfathered, or do we wipe that slate clean with this project and they don't get to kind of carry forward that grandfathering where possibly both these signs don't comply with today's zoning bylaws?
Sure. I think past practice has been to grandfather the signage in when we have retrofits throughout the town. We've been getting, as long as the signs are no larger in area or size, they are okay to go. That being said, I don't know if Fairfield's plan is to have the exact same sign size that's there, or if they're going to comply with the bylaw. That would be a question
So I guess just so Fairfield's clear and this board is clear, if they are to change those signs, then that does again kick it into part of this variance package. Otherwise, they have to replace what is there.
Yes, if they're any larger in any way.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I had that clear myself and for other zoning board members. I think,
Mr. Chairman, I suppose they could tear those signs down and replace them with something that totally complies with the new ordinance, right?
Right, that's their option. I think they can replace them with brand new complying signs, or they can put new signs there as long as they're the same exact form fit, and that would grandfather them. But I think if they tear them down, I guess I look at it as, if you tear a whole house down, right, you need to comply with zoning, right? If you are rebuilding or remodeling a house, you kind of get that grandfathered right. I don't think that. So I guess that would be on Fairfield to figure that out. So, Mr. Hewitt, I guess I would just like some clarification on the 9th variance that I believe we're down to. And you said, and refresh me at the top, it was something you guys were still kicking around. Was that parking ratio, and was that kind of what Corinne Doherty was bringing up?
It was the front parking setback. Which,
okay.
And that was triggered because the garage was in that front parking setback, and we believe that the redesign has pushed that outside of the front parking setback. But I wanted our civil engineer to double check that before we said that definitively.
Okay, so if it's obviously if it's within the setback, you don't need a variance on it. But if you're encroaching it, then that would be that 9th variance you're looking for.
Correct.
Okay, before I turn it over to public, I'll go back to the zoning board one more time. Does anybody have any additional questions for this applicant? Hearing none, I see Nancy McCann, you're on the line. I think you're our only public participant, so go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, board members. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the Eastern Bank trustee of the Animases Trust. The trust is the owner of the directly abutting property at 160 Endicott Street, as well as the property on which the Salem 5 Bank is located. And 160 Endicott Street is the Bed Bath & Beyond shopping center. So we are the direct abutters at the signalized intersection. And I'm looking forward to seeing the revised plans that have been referred to tonight. We have been working with the applicant and his development team to address our concerns, which relate primarily to traffic and traffic circulation. The traffic circulation that was shown on the submitted plan is not acceptable to the abutter. It would cause queuing back that would block access into both the bank, Salem 5, as well as into the shopping center. It also did not allow for vehicle truck access to the loading dock for Bed Bath & Beyond, as well as the other commercial tenants. So we, as the abutter, has incurred the expense of hiring its own traffic consultant and its own civil engineer to review the plans and to even come up with concept plans for the applicant's team to consider. We are still in the process of doing that, and some of the revisions I think that have been discussed tonight will play into that a little bit, certainly as density is reduced. But that process is ongoing, and the abutter is working in good faith with the applicant to address those issues, and looks forward to continuing to do that. But as of right now, the plans that are officially filed with this board, as well as the plans that we have seen as concept plans working with the developer, are not acceptable, and would not allow for the traffic circulation to be maintained both to the existing bank branch that's located there, as well as to the commercial tenants in the retail shopping center, both of which have been there for many years. So we still have certainly concerns that need to be worked out with regard to traffic. But we're hoping that we will be able to continue to work on that with the development team, and we look forward to seeing revised plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney McCann. Mr. Hewitt, would you care to respond to where we're at with working with your neighbor and the traffic light and the concerns she just raised?
Yes, we have been had several conversations with Attorney McCann and some representatives of her clients, and we're currently waiting on some suggested changes from that team. We do think that there's an opportunity here to make an access design that works for all the parties, and I think our residential project can complement well their retail development. So we look forward to coming to a conclusion on that. It has taken some time with all the back and forth, and so we're continuing to work with them, and we hope to finalize that as soon as possible. If this board does move us on, we would next go to the planning board for our special permit. And at that point, I know we're going to talk a lot about the access path and the road design as well. So that's where we're at with the access road.
Okay, very good. I think based on the fact that this board really needs something to look at, I don't know if it's worth any kind of deliberation on this project, and I guess I'll strobe my fellow board members to get their input. But I don't know if well, I speak for myself. I don't believe I have enough information in front of me to make a decision on this case. So I guess I'm asking Mr. Hewitt, are you looking to continue this? And just keep in mind, you know, we've carried this.
Oh, Mr. Chair, we lost your audio, I think.
Sure.
There we go. Am I back? I understand that, you know, there's been a lot of back and forth and there's a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes, but we're well over 6 months now, and I think we'd like to see some kind of, I guess, timely follow-up to the needs of the board. Can you speak to that?
Yes, we're prepared to come back next time with you know, updated plans to present to the board. And the only item that I can't guarantee will be complete is the continued deliberations on the access road, but we will present wherever that process is at the time that we are required to make our submittal. So we would like to continue, and I will take into consideration any comments I've heard tonight in preparing those materials, but we need 2 weeks to get that material together and submit to the board, and then we've prepared to present it with our team.
Very good. All right. Well, I'll go around the horn here, and Becky, I'll start with you.
I think you've summarized it well. I mean, I don't feel that I have enough information to make a decision tonight. I guess my only other comment would be on the signs. I understand that those would be grandfathered signs, but typically with a variance, they're not grandfathered. But let's say they are grandfathered. Are they going to stay with the same height? That would be something else I'd like them to address with their comments or plans when they come back to us. But I don't feel I have enough information to go forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Ken Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree. I mean, I don't think we have enough things to look at to make a decision. I will say that I think this project is very similar to Hollywood Hits. I didn't like the number of units there. I don't like the number of units here. I think it's too big a project, but I am willing to look at the new plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Jeff Sauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, in terms of the applicant, we really need, at least in my opinion, I feel like I need to vote on a plan. I'm not going to vote for variances willy-nilly without knowing exactly what those variances are going to accomplish. So I'm with Becky, and if you could include the sign package in that, new design, that would be great. If we could see what the actual signs are going to look like, that would be terrific. But I won't vote unless we have a specific plan in front of us.
Thank you, Jeff. Ken Jarvinen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. We need plans to look at, and I still think it's too tall. So, I mean, for me, it's just too big. So, if you could work on the height even more, that'd be great. I don't know if you can work with that. That's all I get.
Very good. Thank you, Ken. Corinne.
I agree with my colleagues. I think we need those updated plans to see exactly what this project will look like. I also agree with Attorney McCann. We need a better traffic plan for this site. I am not happy with the original plan. I do not think it has great flow, not great access, and I would be very interested to see what kind of creative problem solving we can do to rid us of those problems. And finally, one of the items that was listed on Aaron Henry's memo regarding this project was a potential need for Department of Environmental Protection waterway permitting. Did you determine if you would need to apply for that? And if you do, when in this process would you have to apply for that permit?
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I guess given that it's probably a very important point. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, we do need a Chapter 91 waterways permit that's issued by DEP, Waterways Division. We've met with them. We've reviewed the initial plan and incorporated their comments into it. They require that we get done with our local permitting before making the application to the state. So that's when we would do that permit.
Anything else, Corinne?
Okay, all right. So that is something that you would have to do in the future when you say that it's after you receive all the permitting. From here, you go to the planning board. You're going to have to go to the Conservation Commission. So is that at the end of the entire process before you begin construction?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne. Mr. Hewitt, I can appreciate the effort that's gone on to address some of the concerns out of the board. The height reduction, I think everything kind of is going in the right direction. However, I do echo Attorney McCann's concern, and just purely as a resident of Danvers who travels Endicott Street, it's quite a congested area. And I don't see how 208 / now 192 apartments helps that in any way, shape, or form. I think it's, you're still asking for quite a bit. It's still 9 variances potentially in an area that's designed for commercial use. So I'm just raising that concern. I think I've been pretty consistent with that opinion about this project. I certainly can understand the overhead costs required to develop this site. And, especially given today's construction, uptick in costs, rising costs. And, you know, there's two things at play here, right? We have a dilapidated site, but that's because the current owner has let it fall into that state. And that's no fault of this board's. In a way, we're trying to bail them out of that. So I have very mixed thoughts about this project. I'm not prepared, as I stated at the top, to vote on it without pictures and renderings. So, but those are my comments, and I still think it's big. I agree with Ken Jarvinen that you might have reduced the height, but I think, maybe reducing more is where I'm at. But with that said, you're asking for a continuance. Our next meeting is on Monday, May 10th. And if you're okay with that, we will make a motion and we will continue. And just realize we need those documents. I believe David helped me the Tuesday prior.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to confirm with Mr. Hewitt, based on what he said, I think he said he needs 2 weeks to turn the plans around. So would he be requesting to come back on the last meeting in May? I guess
So that's the 4th if he comes back on the 10th.
Right, so that means next Tuesday. You got a week, basically, a little more than a week. Is that enough time? If not, we'd have to push you out, as David indicated, to 2 meetings from now.
24th, yeah.
The 24th.
How says you, Mr. Hewitt?
I think we need that extra time to double check both my math and get the plans right and get all the info that the board has requested. So I will request continuance to the 24th.
Okay, I have a request from the applicant. Could I get a motion from a board member?
So moved.
I've got a motion from Ken Scholes, and I've got a second from Jeff Sauer. I'll go with a roll call vote. Becky Kilborn.
Yes, as long as we have plans by the 18th.
May 18th. And Ken Scholes.
Yes.
Jeff Sauer.
Yes.
Ken Jarvinen.
Yes.
Karen Doherty.
Yes.
And John Bonner is also a yes. Okay, Mr. Hewitt and Mr. Thompson, is it?
Sullivan.
Sorry, Sullivan. We'll see you on May 24th.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I've got a second by Jeff. He beat you again, Ken. Getting a little slow there. Roll call vote. Becky.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Ken J.
Yes.
Corinne.
Yes.
And John Bauer is also a yes. David and Georgia, thank you. And we'll see you guys on May 10th.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Davis.
Danvers.